Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 108th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Breaking Mental Barriers. I am so excited today to bring to the podcast my friend Christina Rogers. Christina, I met through my business coach, Greg Todd's World. We did this Invincible Income System program together. We met in person this year at Smart Success Healthcare Live. And Christine is just amazing. You're going to learn this soon. She is a licensed mental health counselor. She is a business and mindset coach and the host of the Mentality Movement podcast. So Christina helps 6 and 7 figure entrepreneurs break mental barriers, unlock financial and personal and professional growth, and become a master of their minds and being high impact leaders. So Christina, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much, Katie. I appreciate it. And I remember when I saw you speak on stage at Smart Success Healthcare Live like 2 years ago, and I was like, you talked about limiting beliefs, and I was like, I need to talk to this person. Like, I love her. So I feel so honored to be on. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm so glad. And so we met 2 years ago or over a year ago.
Yeah.
My bad.
No,
I
no,
don't.
no. I don't even know if we actually like introduced each other, and like I just saw you
Yeah,
speak.
we probably saw in crossing, but I think it's, once we
Yes.
really got into each other's worlds, we're like,
Yeah.
oh. So yeah,
Yes.
we're, even before we hit record, I was telling Christine, I'm like, I love everything you do. And this is what my people need to hear. I know so often we think, as dietitian side hustlers, entrepreneurs, like I need to take another course. I need to get another credential. But really what we need is we need to work on our mindsets. We need to work on what is holding us back. And we need to break through those mental barriers because we are all capable of so much more than we can even imagine right now. So when I was thinking about like, okay, what are Christine and I going to talk about? Because there's so many things. I was thinking like, okay, we could talk about perfectionism, self-worth, limiting beliefs, values. And I did pick breaking mental barriers because I figured this is kind of like a basic 101. Let's dive into stuff. And I could always bring Christina back to the podcast and she can continue to share more with you guys, or you can listen to her podcast, The Mentality Movement, because it is amazing. So I've got some questions for you, but I also figure the conversation will just kind of flow. But my first question is just really so people can get to know you a little bit more and me. Tell us a little bit more about how you got into the space where you are helping entrepreneurs break mental barriers.
For sure. Yeah, great question. I feel like it's been a journey. I actually started I wanted to be a therapist because I wanted to work with athletes to overcome like the mental performance aspect of
Oh,
sport. So when I got started, that was actually who I thought I was going to be working with long term. And as I kind of evolved as a therapist and, started working with different types of people and then becoming an entrepreneur myself, I started to attract a lot of entrepreneurs that were helping other people get better, and kind of transform their lives. So I was like, okay, well, I want to start working with these like high impact entrepreneurs. That's really what I consider the people that I work with. I call them high impact entrepreneurs because I feel like they create so much impact for people.
yes.
The issue with high impact entrepreneurs is they tend to neglect themselves, right? Because they're helping other people. But I started to learn athletes and entrepreneurs have a very similar mindset, right? We were taught to shut off our emotions to be successful.
Mhm.
So when I started working with entrepreneurs, I started to see that. And I was like, oh, this is like entrepreneurship is just like a sport. So kind of evolved into that and started working more with like high level, higher impact entrepreneurs.
Love that. I love that. I love how we always have this plan for this is what I'm going to do with my career.
Yeah,
And then life just brings us on another journey.
exactly. Exactly.
I also like how you said high impact entrepreneurs. And I can agree with that more. I love entrepreneurs. I always say like healthcare entrepreneurs change the world. I mean, they really,
Hmm.
really do. And so I love that. High
Yeah.
impact. And you're so right when you said that we often neglect ourselves. I'm like, oh, I felt that, but I'm actively working on that.
Same, always, always. It's a work in progress.
Yes, it's a continual journey. So let's dive in with what is the number one thing that you think holds entrepreneurs back?
That's a great question. I think there's a couple different things, but the main thing that I see is tying our identity up in what it is that we do, right? It's not about it's we tie our identity to what we do and not who we are. And I think that that gets us in trouble eventually because as soon as we have a shortcoming in our entrepreneurial journey, we come crashing down if we've tied our identity into what it is that we do. So I think when I start with entrepreneurs mostly, they don't know who they are separate from what it is that they do. And that becomes an issue for them. And that usually leads them into my office at some point. um, and then there's also this disconnection from ourselves as far as like from an emotional standpoint. I think that as entrepreneurs, like I said earlier, we are so disconnected from ourselves, from our emotions, from what it is that we're feeling, from what it is that we're experiencing, because it's just what we were taught. So really having a process to connect with ourselves and understand ourselves and how we operate in our business is so important.
Yeah. Kind of tying into what you just said, what we were taught, it makes me
Yeah,
think so much about what we were taught in school. And I even think of what we were taught as being a professional. And I think so many of us were taught that showing emotions, using your emotions is not professional. And I
so
never
true.
thought about that until we were having this conversation.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I struggled with that in the beginning too, because as therapists, you're always told, don't disclose anything, don't talk about yourself. It takes the attention away from the other person. So I found like myself hiding a lot with clients and not really showing up as like my authentic self. So that was something I really had to sort through on my end of, okay, how I think that we actually like vulnerability breeds connection. Like vulnerability actually creates safety. So I have to be able to open up with my clients to create that. But that's not what we're taught as healthcare providers for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm a very emotional person. I talk about big feelings. I will cry very easily, and
Yeah,
I'm very connected to my emotions. But I loved how you said vulnerability leads to connection because I think that's probably why a lot of people who are listening to the podcast connect with me is because I share
sure.
all parts of pieces to me that
Hmm.
maybe are not professional. But I think it forms those connections, and I really do think that once we're able to break through to being
Mm,
our authentic selves, to be vulnerable, I think it actually helps our clients. It helps them connect with us more. And when they connect with us more, we can help them more. And so there really is so much more on the other side of that versus what we were traditionally taught.
for sure. And I think COVID changed that too. Like I think we want that community. We want that like connection. More so now than ever, I think.
Yes, I agree completely. So, what is something that you wish all entrepreneurs knew about mindset?
Hmm. So I was reading this quote and it said sustainable expansion outward requires consistent nourishment inward. And I think that everyone needs to be looking at entrepreneurship in that way of I think we have it backwards. We buy into the business coaching, we read the self-help books, we are trying to gather all of this information and change our businesses, but we're doing that without really understanding ourselves and reflecting inward first and really like processing through some of the stuff that's blocking us from moving forward in our business. So I think we neglect ourselves and try to make all these changes and all these moves, get better systems, things like that. And I think we're doing it backwards. We need to be focusing on the mindset stuff first so that we can implement the business side of things.
Yeah, yeah. So for people who are listening who are like, "What? Well, shouldn't I get all of my business ducks in a row?" How would you break that down for them? Like, what would that look like? What should they start with?
Yeah. So I think a lot of us struggle with limiting beliefs. Like we have beliefs and things that we believe about ourselves from our past experiences that we carry into our present unknowingly, usually. And that can kind of affect how we implement in our business. So if you don't believe that you are worthy of charging more, if you don't believe that you are worthy of, you know, really delivering for your clients, then that's going to block you from being able to grow outwardly in your business. Um, And you can do the two things together, right? Like you can focus on mindset and also grow your business. But I think we completely neglect the mindset side of things as we're growing.
Absolutely. And as you're growing, I'm picking up on that because I know for me, I've been
Yeah.
in the entrepreneur game for a while. I
Hmm.
really truly believe my entire journey and the success I've had has been related to mindset, but it's for me, I feel like it's something I'm always working on. Like there's
Yep.
no end point. It's not like I do the mindset stuff and then it's all good. It's like it's
Yeah.
continual.
Yeah, and things come up as you're growing, right? Like I always
Yes.
say, I always meet people in one of two places. Either they're stuck or they're growing so fast that they don't know how to like keep up. And then they're kind of facing things in that way as well. So yeah, I think being able to incorporate the mindset stuff while you're trying to implement the business stuff, I think is hugely important.
Yeah, absolutely. So you said one of the first things that we should do is you talked about limiting beliefs.
Hmm.
How would you recommend someone get started to figure out what the heck their limiting beliefs are? Because I know for so many people they don't even know. Like they're like,
Yeah.
I have no limiting beliefs. And then once we start breaking it down, we're like, oh, here's 50.
So the first thing I usually say is when you make a mistake, what is the first thing that you say to yourself about yourself? So the story that we tell ourselves about who we are and how we show up are really important. That's your beliefs. That's your belief system, right? So I always go to when something bad happens, when something you're not expecting happens, like what is your initial thought about yourself? And that can really kind of give you that like foot in the door of, okay, that's the belief that I have. Where's that coming from is probably the next step of when was the first time that you heard that or you experienced something like that? And then kind of getting to the root of that. And then, the longer process of it is being able to connect with the sensations that come up in your body, what emotions and feelings that's tied to, and really starting to sort through some of that.
Mm. Oh, so many good things. Um, just random question popped to my head. What do you think about like I'm a big fan of therapy. I shared
Hmm.
with Christina, I'm like, I gotta get off this call at a certain time because I gotta go see my therapist. I'm like, perfect timing. But I don't know. I kind of have this belief. I feel like everyone needs therapy. I feel like there's this like
Hmm.
negative connotation around therapy, but I'm just kind of curious, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I think that therapy has helped me personally, but even professionally. So I'd be curious to
Hmm.
think what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, great question. So I love therapy. I think it is life-changing. I do think that people have an idea of what therapy is in their head, and it doesn't always have to be like that. Um, I think some people think, well, you just go and you vent. And yeah, like some forms of therapy like that is the case. But that's not every single therapist, right? So I think it's really about finding the therapist that fits for you and knowing what it is that you're looking for, what you would want to get out of therapy, and then be able to find somebody that really matches that.
Yeah.
But I think everyone should be in therapy. Everyone should be talking about what it is that is happening for them. And having a safe
Yes.
space, right? Like having a safe space to be able to feel valued and seen and heard and like connected, I think that that's just always important to have.
Yeah, yeah. I look at for me, I've seen a therapist for a long time. I traditionally see them once a month unless stuff's going down, then I might
Yeah.
go more often. But
Yeah.
I the way I've started looking at it is like I exercise for my physical health. I eat well for, all nutritional health. Like there's all these pieces of health we talk about, but I feel like mental health is often neglected because as I guess where I was going is as I was writing down those steps, I'm like, oh, this is so good as people are identifying their limiting beliefs, okay, what were your first thoughts? Where did that come from? Connecting it to the sensations. I think for so many people, like that would seem so foreign. Like, how would I even
Mm,
start processing that? And that's what kind of made me think of
right.
where sometimes therapy can come in and help us to dive deep, break things down, and have breakthrough and grow.
Right. Yeah. And even just like listening to, podcasts and self-help stuff, like it's one thing to listen and like be able to see the information or like, get it onto paper. It's another thing to have somebody help you walk through it.
Yes.
Um, and you can only like, have you ever heard the quote, like, you can only meet someone as far as they've met themselves? Like that's kind of where we're at too. Like we can only meet ourselves as far as we've met ourselves. So having that outside perspective and like accountability to help you walk through that, like that's part of this, knowing how to ask like the right questions. Like
Yes.
I look at it as I ask the right questions. I ask the questions that you're too afraid to ask yourself, and I make you actually answer it. Because sometimes we'll get uncomfortable and we'll be like, okay, I'm done now. So I think that's part of the therapy side of it too, is having someone that's going to challenge you and get you to go deeper than you even know where to go, you know?
Yes, yes. I know so I run a mastermind, it's called the Blog Boss Mastermind, and we have 3 core values, and they are discomfort, um, gratitude, and growth. And so I always talk to them about being uncomfortable, because so often
Mm,
when we're uncomfortable, we run away. But it's like, no, let's
yep.
lean into that, because the longer we stay in discomfort, suddenly we find ourselves being comfortable. So that's how we grow. So
True. So
yeah,
true.
yeah. But a lot of people, I do understand when we want to be comfortable, and we tend to run from the discomfort in all areas. But
Yes.
it's so good.
That's where the growth is, the discomfort. That's where the growth is.
I remember when I left my job, I worked a full-time job at the VA, and I left at the
Mm,
end of 2022, something I never thought I would do. I thought, I know you were talking about how, like, I thought I was going to work with athletes. I thought I was going to work with older adults in the VA until I retired. But then I met Greg Todd, and, everything changed.
yeah, everything
But,
changed.
but when I left my job, I asked Greg, how can I continue to have success? And he told me 2
Mm,
things: stay uncomfortable and be grateful. And like,
love
yep,
both of
okay,
those.
on
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Yeah. Those, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so gosh, we're covering so many things. I love all this stuff. So, limiting beliefs, how we can become aware of them. We should start with really working on mindset, even
Mhm.
before diving into those other business things. Anything else that someone should do when it comes to really addressing mindset, as the first step?
Yeah, I think defining success for yourself. And like I think we've talked a little bit about values before, right? I
Yep,
think that kind of ties into the values.
yep,
Um, I think when we don't know what we value, it's really easy to attach ourselves to what other people value and think that that's
yes,
what we want. So I think that is something that's really crucial in trying to figure that out and overcome these like mental barriers, is really defining what your values are. What do
yeah,
you value separate from everyone else? And how do you define success for yourself, right? It's so easy
yes.
to look around and see what everyone else is doing to be successful and think that's what we want. But what do you actually want? I think that's probably the hardest question to answer for most people.
Yes, you are so right. And I love that. Like, what is success to you? Because for a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, I think we define success as a number. We
Yep.
define it as, I've hit 6 figures, I've hit 7 figures. I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of people listening here can't even comprehend the idea of multi 7 figures, but I'm hoping
Sure.
they'll eventually get to that point. But
Yeah,
maybe
for
that's
sure.
maybe that's our goal. And we
Mm,
think of success as a number. But I will say, for me, that has shifted. And now I recognize success is, I get to be home with my kids. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, you could also find this on YouTube and you can see a video. But the door behind me actually opened at one point, and I was thinking, like, oh boy, it's going down, because I got 2 kids home with me. But luckily, the door opened and it closed, and I'm like, oh
uh-huh.
good, oh good. I do have a slider on my door that says red, don't come in, green, but kids.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily pay attention. But I think for me, this is success. Being able to be home, be present, not have them in a summer school program, have flexibility in my schedule, and just be present with the ones I love most. And so
Yeah.
for me, that's more valuable than any dollar amount. But it just feels like, is that how we define success? Like,
Yeah.
so, but you're right. It varies for everyone, and
Right.
understanding what it is and values. I actually have, I was pulling it up too. So I have my little worksheet from when you did a values training with us. And that was
Yeah.
actually when I asked you to come on the podcast, because I thought that training was so good that I'm like,
Aw.
we should talk about values. But maybe another podcast episode. But I think that is so important too, because you're so right. It's like all this foundational stuff that we don't even think about when we dive into business. But I
Yep.
always think of, as we grow a business, it's like building a house on a foundation.
Mm.
And I feel like I'm on this obsession of, like, what is the difference between people who have success and don't have success? The people who build their home on, like, a real solid foundation versus the one who builds it on a foundation that just, it just blows away when a storm comes. And And I think as we're talking, I'm just even having this realization. I think it really comes down to this mindset, discovering who you are, what success looks like to you, what are your values, what's important for you, being authentic, being vulnerable. And
Right.
so I hope everyone listening is like picking up what we're talking about here, because this stuff really is so important. It's not just this like, oh, mindset, mental health. Like it really is. It's the difference between having success and achieving those big dreams that you've always wanted, and then just feeling like that unfulfilled feeling in your heart of like, oh man, I wish I would have. I just don't know how. I feel stuck. I feel like it's not
Mm,
possible. So
yeah. Yeah, I can't tell you, and that's really great way of explaining it. I can't tell you how many times I've met with seven-figure entrepreneurs that are so unhappy.
yes.
Um, and they think that once they get the house or the money or the car, that they will feel fulfilled. And a lot of times, if that's the thing that you think is going to make you feel fulfilled and you've just been relying on that and then you get it, you're not going to feel completely fulfilled internally. So yeah, I've seen where people are completely out of alignment. And that's kind of what happens. Even if you have all of those things, you're not actually able to fully enjoy any of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where when Greg was telling me the whole thing about gratitude, I think it's the whole thing
Right.
of like be grateful in the moment and
Yep.
appreciate what you have now, because it's not, I'm all about becoming, I'm all about dreaming big, having audacious goals, these big plans and things I want to achieve. But I think if I can't be happy right now in the moment, what was the point of it? So I,
True.
I like that piece though about how, you can become seven figures, and a lot of people are like 7 figures. I'd be happy then.
Yes.
Not
Yeah,
necessarily.
nope. Nope, I've seen plenty that are not.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
then
yeah.
yeah, and then I think one thing people forget about is more money, more problems. So it's all kinds of other
Yeah,
stressors.
that is very true. That is very true.
Oh gosh. So I am loving this discussion. I would, for people who want to like learn more, what are some things that you provide where people can kind of dive a little bit deeper into your world? And I know you have some different things that
Yeah,
might
for
be
sure.
available.
I've got a couple of different things in the works right now. Yeah, so if you go to my website, it's highimpact-entrepreneur.com. You'll be able to see the business breakthrough workshop that I have on my website. It's free for the next couple months. And I just want people to take it and see like what they think about it. Because I'm trying to get people to a point where they're leveraging their mindset to be able to grow their business. So I want to provide resources and tools for people to be able to do that. I also have a limiting beliefs like handout on my website too, that you can kind of walk through the steps that I briefly went over with you, where you kind of start to break through those limiting beliefs. And then I also think I have on there, I think I also have like a free morning mindset like cheat sheet. So you can kind of go through and piecemeal together like a morning routine for yourself to be able to kind of create a stable, like grounded and connected mindset to move throughout your day.
I love it. I love all the
Yeah.
I love all the freebies, all the value that you
Oh,
offer.
heck yeah.
Christina does also work with entrepreneurs, and I know she's, we're still both in Greg Todd's world. So it's like
Yeah.
I'm so excited to see what she's going to do next, because she is amazing, and I'm so excited that you guys are getting to know her now too. So I will
Yeah.
be sure to put the link to your website
Sweet.
in the show notes. But could you let people know where else they can find you online?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at christina.lmhc. And then my podcast is the Mentality Movement Podcast. And you can find that on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts. And I kind of go back and forth with bringing people on and interviewing, and then also doing like solo episodes, kind of like you do, Katie. So yeah, a little bit of everything. And yeah, those are probably the two places to find me online, and then my website as well.
So, well, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap things up today, Christina?
No, that was perfect. I really appreciate you having me on, and I can't wait to have you on my podcast.
Oh, for sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes. I know, and you can talk about mindset too, since that's like something that you're really passionate about. I love that you've incorporated that into a lot of your programs too.
Yeah. We really, pretty much everything, anyone who's worked with me knows this, but everything in my world is mindset. Actually, when it comes to my blogging program where I help, it's like blogging accelerator program. The very first module is about starting with why. We have a whole week dedicated to mindset. And so we do a lot of, and I feel like everything is like I sprinkle in mindset. We have monthly calls that are marketing, sales, and mindset. And I feel like they're more often mindset because that's what we need
Yep.
so much.
Yep. Yep. Care for your
Awesome.
mind. Care for your mind.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Christina. I appreciate you so much. And yeah, I look forward to bringing you back again sometime so we can
Yes.
dive deeper into some of these concepts.
Love it. Love
So
it. Thanks so much,
thanks.
Katie.
Bye.